Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight, for support for each other and for candidates, good candidates, and for action. That's what we're about, is action. So thanks for being here for that. Also, we want to always appreciate the Unitarian congregation for the use of this space, and also the generous help of Dave Hackett, a congregation member, for helping us with rent for this space. This is the first of 2 candidate forums Indivisible Tacoma is putting on in 2026. And it's for candidates and issues. And of course, we want to get some things in before the primary, the August 4th primary. Just a note that Washington Supreme Court candidates Berg and Hawk will appear at the next candidate forum, which is July 15th. And Judge Ian Burke was supposed to be here tonight, but his staff mistakenly booked him for 2 events. So he'll be here in July at that forum. In these forums, you'll hear from candidates, you'll hear from them talking about their campaigns, why they're running, and how we can help them. And then you'll have a chance after the program to visit with them casually with cake. So that's often a really useful thing to do, networking and so forth. Please do acknowledge all the candidates who step forward to run for office. It takes an enormous amount of bravery and sacrifice to do that. If you decide to do that, you are committing to something that's serious. So we want to thank people who are doing that, the people in this room who are running for office, who care that much about the public good, who care that much about the people. This is really important. That level of commitment is inspiring. Here's something that's really super, even more inspiring, and that is that 2 of the candidates can't be here tonight because they are spending massive hours on the Pierce County Charter Review Commission. And that is an enormous amount of work. And this year, it only happens every 10 years. But this year, it turned into quite a bigger commitment with many, many more hours and a lot of study to start developing those amendments. So we want to thank those people for doing that. And we'll have a couple of people speaking on behalf of them briefly.
Hi, my name is Barb Church. My indigenous name is Shwaiya from the Stalo Nation, and I'm doing the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are in the stolen land of the Puyallup tribe, who have lived here since time immemorial. We acknowledge that the Puyallup and other Native nations have been targets of invasion, occupation, and displacement, leading to centuries of trauma. We acknowledge the sovereign rights of the Puyallup and other tribal nations, and we stand in solidarity with their efforts to have their rights honored as part of their work to end centuries of trauma. We acknowledge that with racism directed toward Native, Black, Brown, and immigrant communities, it is imperative that we find common ground to strengthen coalition necessary for the protection of culture, treaty rights, and ultimately for the protection of our lives. Thank you.
All right, we have a word about our process, the Indivisible Tacoma process, the endorsement process, and I'm standing here deliberately with Vicki Stanich and Barb Church, who are leaders of our elections team. And this team, there are several other members here, and they spend hours doing research and looking at candidates. And IT leaders are always on the lookout for good candidates. We want candidates who have the characteristics, values, and action records that align with Indivisible Tacoma values. Sometimes we even recruit a candidate or 2. We see someone who we think maybe you should run for office. The election team volunteers conduct candidate research, prepare questionnaires, targeted questionnaires, sometimes hold interviews, review public disclosure, the PDC, put donations on the PDC, voting records, press releases, campaign websites, and information in the public domain. The team discusses in great depth and votes to recommend endorsement for some candidates. These are reviewed by the IT steering team and then sent out to members for their feedback. And then a candidate is officially endorsed after that is at rest. One of the most exciting things that come out of that, and this is tonight, you are the first in 2026 to receive our IT voter guide. And this is what we do every year to list candidates we recommend. And we cannot tell you how exciting this is because this is the first one of 2026, but also people are going to be asking you, well, wait a minute, I don't know anything about that candidate, or I don't know anything about that judge position or that justice position. I don't know anything. This is something you can offer to them to help. It's a really, really exciting tool. This is the first one. This will be revised and updated as we endorse more candidates. And of course, this is before the August 4th primary. So this will have an update after that for the November general election. So I hope that you will take at least a couple of these and share them with neighbors and friends, and because everybody, so many people who want to be involved in civic affairs look at the ballot and say, I just don't know enough to vote. So please don't let your friends be in that category.
I will just tell you that our researchers spent hours and hours. Some of our researchers had years and years of experience. So that's why we're so excited about our new voters guide. So anyway, that's why we're here, and that I just wanted to share that on my part too.
Because many people in this room, Barb and Vicki, I mean, hours and hours and hours and hours. I did want to make a note where I lost my train of thought was it's really important, the for and the against on the initiatives that'll be on the November ballot. One proposition will be on the August 4th ballot that we endorsed, and that's the Connect Tacoma Safer Streets and Sidewalks proposition. That will be on August 4th, and so we already endorsed that. But the others are put out by Let's Go Washington, the Bryan Haywood billionaire initiatives, anti-trans and anti-voting. Those initiatives, paid signature gatherers are in front of stores, and we're trying to get people to decline to sign. So if you want to go around saying decline to sign, that's a really good thing to do because we really need those initiatives to go down in November. That's really, really important. Our next step after endorsing is to help candidates get elected. And that's where our big, famous door-knocking teams come in. Indivisible Tacoma is known for doing smart and intense door knocking, and it really makes a difference. We talk to people individually on their, at their doors. So we hope that you will sign up for some of that. It's really fun, and we always go together with other people. A couple of major door knockers right up here with me. To continue with the forum, we want to make sure that everybody understands there'll be an introduction of a candidate first, and then the candidates will come up one by one and just follow each other. They have the schedule, and they will introduce themselves, tell a little about their campaign, and then the next person will come up.
Thank you, and I just wanted to mention as well that we also advocate for certain causes, initiatives, and also we also still have a letter that we're going to be sending to Governor Ferguson about protecting our legacy forests, and if you're interested in signing your organization up for that, please let me know at the end of this meeting. So now I am really happy to present the first speaker, and it is Supreme Court Justice Theo Angelis.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Barb. Thank you, Vicki. So thank you, everyone, for being here. It's a true joy to be with you. I just love coming and meeting everyone, especially, I shouldn't say this, but as someone who's lived in Seattle, I kind of love being in Tacoma just a little bit more. It's a prettier city. It's a down-to-earth forum. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm Theo Angelis. I am the Supreme Court Justice, currently serving in position 5 on the court. And my values as a judge and as a lawyer before coming onto the bench were really shaped by the immigrant communities that I grew up in. My father immigrated to this country as a 17-year-old. He came alone and with nothing, and my mother's parents are refugees from Turkey. And so these values have been fundamental to me growing up. I built a legal career after spending a lot of time in school. I built a really varied legal career. I did a lot of things in my practice. I did civil rights work, both for individuals and helping governments who were challenged with civil rights litigation. I did a lot of work for technology companies. I worked with Native American tribes, and I worked with municipalities trying to resolve longstanding disputes over land and sharing resources and sharing the ability to move forward as a community. But I always came back to helping immigrants and thinking about immigrant workers and immigrant rights because it's so fundamental to who I am as a lawyer and what I believe in. So I want to tell you about a couple of the cases that I had, and it's always a little dangerous to let a lawyer start talking about their cases. But one of the cases I had that I'm really proud of, I represented an individual who was a service member, worked at JBLM, became a naturalized citizen while serving, but nonetheless was picked up by ICE and held for 6 months, almost 7 months, with no justification whatsoever. Just held in, and he repeatedly told both the ICE officers and the immigration judge, I'm a US citizen, I'm a naturalized US citizen. And they ignored him. They wouldn't do the research necessary to uncover the truth. So when I heard about this case, I was so outraged that I took the case pro bono with no fee whatsoever. And we, of course, were faced immediately from ICE with a claim of qualified immunity. We are immune from these claims. You can't sue us because, whatever the constitutional violation was, we couldn't possibly have known that we were doing the wrong thing. So we overcame that defense here in Tacoma. We were in front of the U.S. District Court here in Tacoma. We overcame that defense. And of course, ICE appealed to the Ninth Circuit, and we overcame the defense there as well. And ultimately, ICE settled with us, gave my client $400,000 for the lost period of his life, and a formal apology that we framed and hung on his wall. And that was more important to him than the money, because the dignity of being treated fairly by our immigration system is worth more than anything. Just amazing. Thank you all. And so that really built, of course, the very first case I ever had as a lawyer was an immigration case for a gentleman from the Republic of Congo. Again, a pro bono case I took on because he had been mistreated by his government. But I continued to build on these cases. I worked on individual cases because they were important to me, but I also wanted to make a more fundamental difference. So I joined forces with the Northwest Immigrant Rights Project and the ACLU, and we brought a class action lawsuit on behalf of all children in immigration proceedings. And I don't know if any of you know this, but until our case, children were forced to represent themselves in immigration court. So children as young as 4 years old were required to stand up in front of a judge with a trained prosecutor against them and try to make a case for why they should be in this country. And again, this is so outrageous, so contrary to what we believe is what our justice system requires, that we brought a lawsuit and we said, that's unfair. Children need to have lawyers in immigration court, and the government needs to pay for that. And so we litigated. We had a lot of ups and downs. There are procedural hurdles to suing the government that are very difficult. But ultimately, we settled that case, and the United States agreed to pay for lawyers for every child in immigration proceedings. And so that was a marquee day for immigration justice, and I'm really proud to have been a part of that. So these cases really point to a larger truth about what law can be and should be in our society. And of course, as a member of the Supreme Court, I'm no longer, in the cases we decide, I'm no longer an advocate. The cases come before us. I dig into the record, I dig into the legal proceedings, I really think about what's already happened in the case, and I think about the legal principles that we have to apply. And ultimately, everyone comes to our court with a fair shake. And the results that we reach are not always politically the ones that I would pick, but I always feel good that we are reaching the result that the law requires. We do something important, though, as the Supreme Court. We supervise the justice system in Washington. And we're responsible for creating the rules and thinking about how we can make access to justice a reality for everyone in our state. So we're doing a lot of exciting things right now. We are trying to broaden the pool of lawyers that can come into the profession. And we're doing a few unusual things. So we've recreated the process and are strengthening the process whereby people can come and become lawyers in the same way Abraham Lincoln was a lawyer. They study with other lawyers who are experienced in the community. They learn from doing, and then they can become lawyers in our society. And they can really help individuals. And I found that some of the most welcoming ways to bring people into the legal community are to find them. You heard Ellen talking a moment ago about sometimes you see people who could be great candidates. Sometimes I see people who are smart, young people or middle career people who would be wonderful lawyers but think they could never be part of the legal system. And so we're trying to bring those individuals, many from underserved communities, many from all over the Sound, many from all over the state, who we think would be excellent lawyers but can't quite get to a law school or can't get to one of the premier law schools in our state. And so we're also opening and thinking about expanding the pool of law schools that are available and qualified to take the bar exam. And all of these things are reforms that are near and dear to my heart, because ultimately our justice system cannot be a luxury good. It has to be something available to everyone. So before I sit down, I just want to say thank you again to what you're doing. You heard about the elections. About a third of people won't even vote in the judicial elections, and a third of people will vote primarily based on the name. So you have an important role to play. If you could, each one of you, please send an email out and say, look, I've talked to some of the Supreme Court justices. Here's who I think is the right person. Here's who I think you should support. That can genuinely go viral in the state and make a huge difference. So thank you all for having me here. It's been a true honor, and thank you for what you're doing. Together, we truly are indivisible.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Coreen, and I'm running for Pierce County Prosecutor because I'm committed to justice. I currently live in Northeast Tacoma with my 4 kids and my husband, Mike. I'm the criminal chief for the Pierce County Prosecutor's Office, so that's approximately 2/3 of our office, about 180 support staff and attorneys. I started work when I was 15 years old. At the age of 17, I became a certified nursing assistant where I took care of the elderly in my community for 4 years, and that really taught me that I wanted my work to be meaningful. The concept of justice was first introduced to me when I was in law school, and a professor asked us, "What does justice mean to you?" At that point in my life, I had a good friend whose 12-year-old brother had just committed suicide. I knew that both her and her brother had really grown up in abusive homes, that justice for them had never intervened. And I know that for justice to exist in this community, it has to be there for everyone. And I have spent my career as a prosecutor fighting for those people that don't often see justice: human trafficking cases, domestic violence cases, child sex abuse cases, to bring justice to those in the community. And I want to continue that work as the Pierce County Prosecutor. As the prosecutor, we will of course focus on those crimes that impact the community the most, those violent crimes. They take a lot different work now than they did when I first started practicing law 20 years ago. The technology advances have created issues in terms of processing evidence and being able to proceed on those. And also quality of life crimes. We have significant issues in this community with fentanyl. We're seeing children being exposed to fentanyl, and that's creating issues within our community. And as Pierce County Prosecutor, I will focus on those issues that are most important to the community. I would love to have your support. It's a local campaign, so it looks a little different than a statewide campaign, but it's also similarly difficult to get the message out to people in terms of who you are as a prosecutor and what you stand for. So any way that you can help me get that message out, and I have a card if you come up to me after, which will have a link to my website, and I really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Hi, I'm up here for the first time of 2 tonight because tonight I am speaking currently on behalf of Kelsey Barrans, who's running for District 1 County Council. So she's at the charter. She apologizes for not making it, and it is in first person because you guys are supposed to pretend I'm her, okay? I'm running for Pierce County Council because I love District 1, and I'm tired of having to choose the candidate that I believe will do the least harm because those are the only options on my ballot. There is a demographic shift happening in District 1, and our district deserves a representative that embraces the change and serves everyone in the district. As a social worker, I've advocated for survivors of domestic violence, supporting their access to services, safety, and stability. Through my work at Green River College, I've established programs that ensure students have access to food, housing, and the resources they need. And as chair of the Pierce County Charter Review, I currently lead the 21-member commission as we work together to address the needs of community members from across the county by collaborating, finding common ground, and compromising. These are the skills that I would bring to the County Council, and it is with the support of groups like Indivisible Tacoma that we have the opportunity to flip the first. I look forward to seeing you all in July.
My name is Kenneth King, and I am also running for District 1 for the County Council. That's East Pierce County. I'm a behavioral health specialist. I have been working on the crisis team up in King County for the last 3 years. Before that, I was on the Recovery Navigator Program, which is the official diversion program for the Blake decision. There's a lot of programs that not everybody knows these things. You'll hear people say that, for example, drugs were legal for 2 years. When they're talking about that, they're talking about the Blake decision. And I was the part of the team that was one of the first and official, most productive diversion teams for that program. Just today alone, now that I've come back down to Pierce County and I'm working down here, I had to work with the HCA this morning. I had to work with the COC. The HCA, is the healthcare authority for the state. The COC was my next meeting, which was the Continuum of Care Board, which is a Pierce County HUD funds and governance board. Right after that, I had to go to care coordination meetings with the courts. After that, and this is just today, after that, I had a meeting with the Puyallup mayor about housing in our area. These are the things that I do every day, every week, because these are the things that have to be done, because whether we like it or not, the people that were over there before stayed quiet. We can't stay quiet as we move forward because we are missing, in East Pierce County specifically, a lot of services. We have no buses. We have no behavioral health teams. We have no crisis teams. We have very little access to actual services like free clinics. If you want a free clinic, you have to drive from Bonnie Lake for 40 minutes to Tacoma. Nobody's going to do that, so they just go to the ER and they bill up those bills, right? When we talk about what's happening over in East Pierce County, we're talking about what's happening over the entirety of the county, because these are the fights that we all kind of come at every single week and every single month. Whenever we're having meetings like this, we talk about behavioral health, we talk about substance use, we talk about children and access to education. We talk about free rights for everyone. We talk about LGBTQ freedom to love each other, right? Shout out, Puyallup is gonna have their Pride meeting very soon on the 27th of July, I think, the 25th. That's a huge thing for Puyallup, considering just 20 years ago, we still had rebel flag truck parades happening. Change is coming, whether some folks want it to or not. We have to make sure that we're out there on the front lines, speaking up in positions of leadership in the community and proving the best that we can that we are role models for the continuation of these movements. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Bryan Yambe, and I am proud to be your council member on the Pierce County Council representing District 5 in Pierce County. Before anything else, I want to thank the Indivisible Tacoma team. Groups like this teach all of us that democracy isn't something that happens to us. It's something that we work together to build. So my story is kind of unlikely. A kid who came from South King, born in Tacoma, and raised by an immigrant from Japan who had a union job, who helped provide a roof over my head, food on their table, and opportunities that I never imagined could be possible. And my mother family was among the 120,000 Japanese Americans who were interned in World War II, stripped of their constitutional rights with no due process. And those two stories taught me an important lesson that government can either let people down or it can fight for them. And that lesson carried me through my terms on the 5 City Council and at the county. where in the first year and a half of my term, we've done some extremely meaningful work, from making investments, $12.2 million in affordable housing, to preserve 646 affordable homes, pass the Justice Fund to make sure that we have a balanced system that looks out for the needs of all of our communities, and strengthened behavioral health investments, and stepped up with emergency assistance during federal government uncertainty when SNAP was threatened. The county, we invested $400,000 of our own. So I've worked to make sure that food security is a county priority, strengthening support for seniors, working families, young people, and the most vulnerable residents. That's proof that when government chooses to fight for people, that the system can work and lives actually change. Now, here's why I need you tonight. 2 of our seats, as you know, are needed to retain the majority. 2 seats. There's 3 seats up. And District 5 and District 6 and District 1 are extremely important races that often get overlooked. And so we need 2 of those seats for sure. We're gonna do what we can to get that 3rd. But it's really important that if you want to see meaningful work continued on affordable housing, on public safety, on environmental issues, on even reproductive justice issues, that will all come to a halt, especially if you feel certain ways that those will come to a halt for progressive values if we lose the majority. And I do want to say that, Brenda couldn't be here and her husband is speaking, but she's an incredible candidate as well. Running out, she's the only Democrat out there in the Peninsula District, and I've served on many different commissions with her. So I'm asking directly, knock doors with us, come out, support the events. And lastly, I want to thank my colleague, Dave Morrell. Yes, he is a Republican, but he's here, and he's showing up just like you all, and he's termed out. But as much as he's probably disagreed with everything I have to say, he's a hardworking public servant who I've been lucky to learn a lot from. So I appreciate all of you for the work that you do, and let's go win this together.
Well, Bryan already put in a plug for my wife. I know it's going to be a little more difficult for you to see me as Brenda than before, but she wrote this out for me, so I'm going to read it. Thank you to Indivisible Tacoma for inviting me to speak this evening. I'm sorry I could not attend, but wanted to send my message of heartfelt appreciation for your endorsement and for your ongoing advocacy in our community. I built my life here in Pierce County for over 45 years. My roots are here, and I've had the honor of serving this community as a healthcare provider, neonatal nurse practitioner, Gig Harbor City Councilwoman, and as a current member of the Commission for the Pierce County Charter Review. All these roles have shaped how I have seen the world, and they're part of why I'm running. In healthcare, you see how something like housing, instability, the rising cost of living affects people's both physical and emotional well-being. On city council, you learn what it takes to move an idea from conversation to action, how budgets reflect priorities, and how important it is to have leadership that's willing to listen and act with compassion. In the Charter Review Commission, you gain a deep understanding of the foundation of our government, our county government, and the necessary checks and balances to powers. And I'm sure you all know what that refers to. Together, these experiences have shown me that local government works best when it's accessible, transparent, and grounded in everyday realities of the people it serves. I am confident that with collaborative and respectful leadership, we can build a future that reflects our shared values. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you next month.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Laurie Jinkins. I've represented the 27th Legislative District for about the last 15 years. Thank you. And I've been Speaker of the House for the last 6 years. I want to start off, like others have, by saying thank you for Indivisible for your endorsement. You all are the folks that convert your values into working on the ground for candidates. And there's no other organization in Pierce County that does it like you do. So thank you for that. I also want to offer a little, I'm not sure if it's an apology or just to let you know that about 2.5 hours ago, I had my pupils fully dilated. So if I look at you, but I'm not looking at you, just, you now will know what I would look like if I just had black eyes. So they're very wide. I think for somebody who's served as long as me, it may be, I think the history of what I've done in the legislature is the best indication for you of what I would continue to work on this next session. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about, since I became speaker, what the legislature has done. I don't claim full credit for it. I am the one who decides whether or not bills get on the floor, and sometimes they don't go, even if I'd like them to. But the first year I was speaker, in 2020, we passed the capital gains excise tax. In 2021, we passed the Climate Commitment Act. In my second year of being speaker, we also passed the Working Families Tax Credit in 2021. We passed a whole spate of laws on law enforcement accountability and reform in 2022. Let's see, where did I put number 6? Oh, we passed the assault weapons ban in 2023 and the permit to purchase firearms in 2024. And in that realm of time, we passed 15 other pieces of legislation on firearm responsibility. We then moved on to supporting a whole plethora of bills on supportive and middle housing. That we did in 2023 all the way up to 2026, have been passing things every year. And then this year we passed a little bill called the Law Enforcement Leadership Bill. And then finally one that you probably haven't heard of, but I think it's important. It's called the Millionaire's Tax. So I tell you that to say those represent many of my values. I didn't go through all of them, but they represent my values. They're the things that my caucus works on, and they're the things that I work on. I think this election season, in addition to me being on the ballot and all of my House colleagues, and we have some open seats that I'm hoping you all will elect Democrats to. I also do just want to call out, we know that 3 initiatives will for sure be on the ballot. There may be others, but initiative to the legislature 001, which would put kids at greater risk of abuse. Based on counselors having to knowingly put kids in danger by disclosing things like their sexual orientation and their gender identity. Secondly, Initiative 638 will be on the ballot. This is going to put girls, just girls, at risk of harm by requiring invasive genital exams that aren't required now to play sports, but they would be required to play sports in the future. So I hope you'll vote no on those. We're hoping that the millionaire's tax does not get enough signatures, but it likely will. They've invested a lot of money in it, and I'm hoping you'll vote no on that one. And then there's a whole bunch of charter amendments that we'll have to see, but I'm hoping you'll vote yes on those. So in my last 30 seconds, I just want to tell you that I think this next session, we're going to be working on things, and I'm going to be working on things like a job package to make sure that Washingtonians across the board have good paying jobs. We're going to work on affordability for Washingtonians. We're going to work on our budget and making sure that we're protecting the services that Washingtonians expect and deserve in this state. And we are going to protect Washingtonians from a malevolent federal government. We will never, ever stop doing that. And it is malevolent in every single way you can possibly imagine, and we will enter in every single way. And then finally, before I get the hook, we will of course continue to try and remake our incredibly regressive and awful tax structure. Thank you so much for your support.
All right, friends, now I'm back here on behalf of myself. I am Tamara Stramel, and I am running for state senate in the 31st Legislative District. Against a little bit of an incumbent. Maybe you know him, but we're not going to speak, of him. Those who will not be named. We have a big district out in East Pierce, South King. It's 840 square miles with 11 cities and 11 school boards represented in it. And I have been helping in every spot of it, as I have served now for 8 years on the executive board for the 31st Legislative Democrats, and we go out to Wilkeson and Buckley and go and have the loud, proud 31st Dem logo, if you've ever seen it. It's Pride People. It is amazing. And every time I'm at one of these fairs, I'm told over and over, I didn't know people in this area shared my values. The values that we should be standing up for our LGBTQ communities, the values that pro-democracy is important all the time. And so while I'm gonna fight for those elements, I really wanna focus on supporting our cities and our schools by funding education as all the way from pre-K to job apprenticeships. It's really our fundamental duty, says the Constitution, and we're not doing a good job. Right now, I volunteer a lot at my kids' Title I school, which is a great microcosm of our state. It is on Lake Tapps, but yet a Title I school where 60% of children can't afford lunch. And so we have a very good description of the haves and the have-nots, and the reason our school is so awesome is because of the unpaid labor of mostly women standing up and making it happen in the PTA. And that is not an equitable way for our schools throughout the state to thrive. So I'm hoping to be a very strong champion for education priorities. The second big thing I'd like is for us to spend a little bit more money on infrastructure outside of our core areas. I don't know if you guys have heard, but we have some bridge problems in my district. Predominantly the Fairfax Bridge that is cut off residents and people trying to just get into a national park, but it's also cut off 50,000 cars every summer to Wilkeson, and it's slowly making that a ghost town. This is a problem that our Olympia friends knew was a problem for many years, and we need people in my district that are more concerned with fighting for those priorities than just fighting the majority party, which is really what my representative is currently doing. It was so nice to hear Laurie talk about all the good things that have happened in the last few legislative terms, particularly on the continued gun responsibility. I feel very passionately as someone that was in high school during Columbine, that lived throughout college campus. My husband was on a school during a school shooting when he was in college, and then I got to send my kindergartner to school right as Uvalde was happening. And so this is a problem that we have. We can't let people who spend their Decembers writing bills to revoke all of those bills that we've fought so hard for continue to be the only person in the room out there in the 31st. Thanks. And guys, I come to this excited because I think that we can change this district. I see a true path to flip it, and it is because I've been doing all the door knocking. Last year, I was running Kate Baldwin's campaign in Auburn for her re-election, as well as running for charter. And the year before that, I was our field organizer for the Sumner Lake School Bond, which passed at 64%, largest bond in Washington state history. So I have the organization chops to get this done, and I just need you all to help me. So if you find me afterwards, I brought a little QR code with my many ways that you can sign up to volunteer. And I'm just really happy to be here with you all. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. How are you guys feeling? Are you nice and awake? Yeah. You know, I never imagined myself at the front of a church at a pulpit, but I've got something to say. So as you probably know, I'm Sharlett Mena. I'm the state representative for the 29th District, which includes South and East Tacoma, Parkland, Spanaway, some parts of Lakewood. And I've been proudly serving the people of the 29th in the House for the last 4 years. I come from an immigrant family. I'm the proud daughter of Mexican farm workers who came here picking cherries and strawberries in California, asparagus and apples in Washington state. And eventually they worked their way into union jobs at the meat plant just outside of the Tri-Cities, where they were able to trade shifts so that one of them could always be with us. And they worked really hard to build a strong foundation for my brothers and I, one that they felt that they didn't have. And that is getting harder and harder to do. That's what I hear from my constituents when I knock doors, when they come to see me in Olympia, when I meet them in forums, when I see them around the community. And that's why I'm running, because we have done an incredible job and made significant progress in so many ways. I couldn't have said it better than Speaker Jinkins, but in addition to the millionaire's tax, we passed rent stabilization. We passed a statewide low-income utility assistance program. We've done a lot to strengthen unions, from making sure that people can collect unemployment insurance when they're on strike so that workers have that collective bargaining power. We have a bill that we're going to keep working on to allow farm workers to unionize and collectively bargain, because everyone, especially people that are working that hard to put food on our tables, should have that right to advocate for themselves. And certainly we did a lot this year to protect ourselves and insulate ourselves against a malevolent federal government. In addition to what you heard, we banned the use of face masks by ICE officials. We made harsh accountability for people that impersonate an officer. And we protected by allowing immigrant workers to be notified if there's going to be an I-9 raid, because we know that people are not playing by the rules right now. We also have brought real dollars home to this district. We've invested in capital projects that bring housing here through Mercy Housing, through Bridge Meadows. We've invested in food banks. We've invested in parks and splash pads. You can touch the projects that we have invested in the 29th over the last 4 years. But clearly we are not there. And there's so much more work to do in building a tax structure that doesn't balance our budget off the backs of working people. And there's way more to do to make sure that there's sufficient housing that is affordable. We should probably also think about, how are we going to keep groceries from being price gouged? So we have a lot more work ahead of us, and I'm really excited to get to work on that. The way that you guys can help this campaign is getting involved through canvassing. So we, in addition to canvassing for this campaign, are going to be canvassing for the No Hate campaign. So if you are into supporting this campaign and making sure that our neighbors across the 29th who may not be on the top of the priority list for the No Hate campaign can come join us. You can find information on our website. Come out with us anytime. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Erin Chapman-Smith. I use she, her pronouns. And again, just want to start by saying thank you to Indivisible Tacoma for their endorsement and all of the work that it takes to put events like this together. It's really a challenging thing to get this many people in the room, especially on a weeknight. So thank you all for being here as well. I'm running because I really want to keep the momentum of all of the things that we've heard tonight. It's kind of hard to follow Sharlett, who talks about all of these incredible wins. But I'm coming to this election with a little bit different background. I'm not a politician. I have spent my career working in nonprofits. I'm currently the executive director of the state's largest emergency shelter for young adults. And prior to that, I spent about 10 years working on housing, affordability, and shelter services for 12-year-olds up to 25-year-olds, including a shelter program that works specifically with minors coming across our borders by themselves. That program, has just been super instrumental. This was during the time of like children in cages in Texas and Arizona. We flipped that model. We built out an entire program that had a medical clinic, a school, mental health therapy, and really embedded a full spectrum level of care, which a huge thank you to Justice Angelis for sharing his experience and wins on bringing forward legal representation for these immigrants. We didn't have that until about halfway through that program. It makes such an absolute difference. I'm coming to this election again with that practical on-the-ground experience where policy and real life interact. So I've spent my entire career helping our community navigate that and navigating how those policies allow us to change and make forward momentum as a community. Again, I've worked a lot in housing and shelter. I've worked in mental health and physical health, really working to provide absolute clear pathways for community members. I'm also the only parent in this election. I have an incredible 9-year-old with special needs, and so I've spent the last 5 years working within the school districts here in Tacoma to really advocate for special ed, making sure that our education system is fully funded, and really making sure that our schools have the resources and tools necessary to support all students. Really want to work on food access, transportation, reducing medical debt, which will help with affordability. Affordability is one of the things that I hear most out on kind of the door-knocking trail and canvassing. Really want to make sure that we are doing our absolute best to support folks with being able to stay in this community and live and not be pushed out due to costs. Representation also matters. I'm the only LGBTQ person in this race, and you all have the opportunity to make history in this election, which is fantastic. If elected, I would be the first transgender legislator in Washington state history. Yeah. I will say that one of my dear friends is running in the 37th, also is transgender, and it looks like she is going to win, which is really exciting. So regardless of what happens, I think this is the year where we get to see our transgender community represented in the state legislature, which is fantastic, especially with the initiatives that are on the docket this year. So I want to say thank you again. Looking forward to connecting with all of you. Again, I've got a card that has a QR code, so if you're interested in joining us for door knocking or coming to our events, would love to see you. I'll also just give a quick plug that my official campaign kickoff is tomorrow night, 5 to 7 at the Star Center. I know there's a lot of other meetings happening tomorrow, but would love to see you. Feel free to stop by halfway through. Thanks so much.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Natasha Laitila, and I am also running for Washington State Representative Position 2 in the 29th Legislative District, the district that we are actually sitting in right now. And the reason why I'm running is because I am a product of this district. I was born and raised here. I received the majority of my education here. I went to Sheridan Elementary School on Sheridan Street, Stewart Middle School on Pacific Avenue, Henry Foss High School, which is not in the district, but in Tacoma. And then I was privileged enough to receive a full need or a full ride scholarship to PLU, which is in the district in Parkland. And I'm running because we have a very unique district that has unique needs. And, on the campaign trail, we often, one of the fun facts is, not fun facts, I should say, but is that we have some of the lowest voter turnout rates in the state. And people say it as a fact and not as a, wait, why is that an issue? And that's a huge reason of why I'm running, because we have affordability issues, infrastructure issues. People are scared and frustrated and just feel like, what's the point of participating? But where we are federally, we need as many people to be part of the political process. And so growing up, I didn't know what Olympia was until I started lobbying for Planned Parenthood. And when I went to Olympia in high school, I was like, what is this place? Why are they making decisions? And so that really opened the doors for me to try and understand state government. And at PLU, I got my bachelor's in political science and women and gender studies, and I have worked across all 3 branches of state government, including both chambers of the state House and Senate. I've worked for a freshman legislator, Representative Jamila Taylor, and a senior senator, Senator Bob Hasagawa. And most recently, I was with the Department of Commerce, helping TANF families receive and maintain their benefits. But I had to unexpectedly resign in 7 days, 2 months ago, because of something called the Hatch Act. And as someone who takes care of her parents, I almost couldn't run. But my family and I made the decision of, if I regretted not running for our district, would I regret it? And the answer is yes. Because state employees and frontline workers deserve and need to be in positions where decisions are being made because they understand the impacts of policy affecting our target populations. And so my issues are affordability. So there are so many working class families and also multi-generational households in our district. Parents who can't live off their Social Security, but also the children who can't afford childcare, so they are living together because they can't afford to live on their own. Long-term care as well as groceries, education. It is honestly very hard door knocking to see and to hear the stories of my neighbors. I'm also running to protect immigrant communities and also for strengthening our union labor. I was part of the unionizing effort in the Washington State Legislature to help staff unionize. But I am confident to say that I have knocked the most doors because our district deserves to be met where they're at and to encourage people to be part of the process. So I please encourage you to join me in making just drastic changes because we have the opportunity to really have a chance to shape the 29th and turn into a place where families can stay here and just thrive. Sorry, that's my alarm. And just candidly, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak here because as someone growing up, I never thought that I would be here today, being in a position to represent my district. It honestly feels like a dream come true. And when I'm at the doors, people are saying, wow, you're really doing this. And that makes me a little emotional, but just thank you for the opportunity, and I hope you can join me on this journey. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Patrick Stickney. I'm also running for the 29th Legislative District Position 2 spot, and I'm running because we have a lot of things that we need to do for the district and our state. I come from a low-income family. My family moved up to Washington in search of a better life, away from domestic violence, substance use issues, and for a number of years I was living with my mom, who was living with my grandparents. And when you're in a situation like that, things affect you more. If you lose a job, if you get an illness, if you have your car break down, and in those situations, it takes more to stabilize, and it takes more to actually do what you need to do to move on, to provide for your family. And then when you have big decisions that are coming from Olympia that affect you, that affect people around you, it's hard to feel like you can make a difference. And I saw that myself just after the Great Recession, going to college when tuition was increasing. A lot of folks I know didn't go to a post-secondary pathway, and for me, if tuition increased too much, I wasn't going to be able to finish my degree myself. So I got involved, went down to the legislature, helped our voices be heard, and one of the things that I heard was that there are two big areas you can cut: higher education or healthcare, and people will die if you cut healthcare. And that's something that I agree with, but what I didn't agree with is pitting people and causes against each other, and that's something that I still bring with me today. And bringing this value for public service, working for other people, I believe the state should be able to step in to address harm when it has been done, and that's something that I did, protecting people's retirement savings at the Washington State Department of Financial Institutions. I also believe that the state needs to reduce barriers for folks to receive the resources that they need to survive and thrive, something that I'm proud to support doing legislative work for the Washington State Office of Equity. We are running to address rising costs. As we've talked about with the district, from my own background, when I share that our district has a poverty rate that is 1.3 times higher than the rest of the state, I feel that. As someone who struggled to breathe as a child, when I share that 3/4 of our census tracts rank a 9 or a 10 on the environmental health disparities map, I feel that. And those are the things that we need to address in Olympia. We need to address surveillance pricing, stopping our data from being used to charge us more for goods, go after hidden fees, break up those monopolies that are raising prices for all of us. We need to make sure that we're addressing affordable housing, providing rental support earlier before people are in crisis mode so people are able to get through tough times. And we need to make sure that we're protecting folks from an out of control federal government, doing everything that we can to make sure that we're protecting our immigrant and refugee communities and our other communities as well, something that I know all too well as a proud brother of 2 trans sisters. And so this is something that we're not going to be able to do alone. Politics is a team sport, both on the campaign trail and in Olympia. And so I'm asking you to join me here on this campaign. We're going out consistently. I'm going out every day. We're having these big canvas days coming up. I hope you can join me. We're going to have one on Saturday at Charlotte's Blueberry Park, and we'll have more coming from there too. We can get this done. We can make a better future for our district and our state. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for your support. I'm really grateful for the endorsement, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do together for everyone in our state. All right, thank you.
Well, good evening. I'm Mari Leavitt, and I am not running for the position in the 29th Legislative District, but I am running and very grateful
I'm running for re-election in the beautiful 28th Legislative District. If you're not familiar, it's Western Pierce County, University Place, Fircrest, DuPont, Steilacoom, the Islands, Anderson, Ketron, and McNeil, DuPont, parts of Spanaway, parts of Grain, and goes all the way out to Elk Plain. Includes Joint Base Lewis McChord, very proud to support our military and our military families, as well as Western State Hospital. So broad, diverse district. I'm really honored to have served it for the last 8 years. And I'm really proud of the results that I've delivered for our district, whether it's capital investments, very similar to soon-to-be Senator Mena, affecting all areas of the district, whether it's arts projects, parks, investing in behavioral health, in the transformation of Western State Hospital, ensuring we are getting dollars out in the Bethel-Spanaway district to expand road access and make sure that it's safe for our children to walk to school, ensuring that we have safe sidewalks to walk to school or for kids to bike or for families to get to where they go, ensuring we have access to transit. And have Pierce Transit routes that deliver out in our district. These are all of the things from an infrastructure perspective that I'm proud to deliver. But not only that, I've worked to create pathways from prison to post-secondary education when we know that 93 to 95% of our incarcerated folks are to be released. It's important that they have access to education and skill development while they're there in order, once they get out, that they're able to contribute in a way that they have the capacity to do so if they're given those opportunities. I've worked to ensure that our WIC access, our WIC checks, it used to be that you can't get much fruits and vegetables for $20, and we were able to raise that. I've also worked to ensure that we're protecting our election workers from harm and harassment, and to make sure that we're taking care of our healthcare workers and protecting them against workplace violence. And certainly expanding education from early learning to post-secondary education in both programs, career and technical education, and addressing our workforce. So very excited to work with Speaker Jinkins on jobs and creating workforce opportunities in our states. I am very grateful to be here tonight and to join you, and grateful for all of you who have taken time out of your calendar to participate. It's really important that you engage in the way that you have and that you will. I also want to acknowledge that I too seek support on the campaign trail because it's never easy in my district, but certainly working hard. I'm proud of the relationships I've built across our district with law enforcement, our military, our community groups, and we'll continue to work hard working with everyone to benefit the 28th and the beautiful 28th Legislative District. So Angelo is in the back, my campaign manager. I'm sure he's happy to take your name and number. But for all of those reasons, I am grateful for your support and ask for your kind consideration of support on the trail as well. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is David Berg. I am candidate for 25th District State Representative, Position 1. I currently serve on the Puyallup School Board, where I was first elected in 2021 and re-elected in 2025. One of the things that my wife constantly reminds me of as I'm talking to groups of people is that I need to be more enthusiastic about the things that I'm talking about. And the reason is not because I'm not passionate about those issues, it's because I really project calm, steady influence. I've been working on education issues as an education advocate for more than 20 years. I've got stuff done because I worked at it persistently over time and kept going when things were difficult. I found people that I could work with, we found partnerships, we got stuff done. And a lot of times the way that you get things done isn't flashy. It's because you're there and you're still there and you come back and you keep asking and you keep advocating and you don't give up. I don't give up. One of the things that is most exciting about this opportunity right now is that the 25th District for a long time has been really, really close to flipping. This year we're actually going to do it. And when we do it, we're going to give Speaker Jinkins just a few extra votes that are really, really important to get some of the issues that are important to folks like you passed in the next legislative session. So if we're able to flip a couple of seats, take a couple of seats that we feel pretty good about in other places around the state, we're going to have the votes in the legislature to get stuff done that we've run into roadblocks on. And I'm really excited to be one of the people that makes that happen. So like I said, I've been advocating for public education issues for more than 20 years. I started when my kids were in kindergarten. I was the PTA dad, and as a PTA dad, that meant you were the PTA legislative rep because that's what PTA dads did. It meant that I got to talk to a lot of legislators. It meant that I got to talk to a lot of people in the PTA to explain why these issues mattered. It meant that I got opportunities to do more advocacy on behalf of the Washington Coalition for Gifted Education and passed legislation that has resulted in hundreds of thousands of students across the state having more access to highly capable programs than would have happened had we not been working for those issues. It's meant that we increased funding for those programs, and again, provided opportunities not just based on zip codes, but based on the fact that these kids exist every place. So when I look out at this room, the thing that really inspires me is that when I see people complaining about those radicals from Indivisible, the first thing I think is, okay, well, let me read that again. And today I was reading a critique that talked about those violent folks with Indivisible Puyallup. And again, I'm thinking of the minister that was sign waving at the last gathering that talked about her hikes across the country. We're not radical. These are not radical ideas. These are democratic ideals. These are American ideals. These are listening to folks' ideas. And that's one of the things that has sorely been missing in the 25th for so long. We have legislators there who, when I write to them, either as an individual advocate on behalf of the school board, they don't respond. Maybe a couple weeks later, I'll get a response from someone that says, we'll look into it if it comes before our committee later. That's not good enough anymore. We need people who are in the room, making the legislation, working on the legislation, and getting things done for the people who need our help. I'm going to be that person, and I'm grateful for your support to do that. You can join me next Wednesday, Trackside Pizza in Puyallup, for my kickoff to learn more, have an opportunity to volunteer with us, help us door knock. We're going to get this done. We're going to flip the 25th. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Knox, and I am the campaign manager for Jenn Marie Strickling, who is running for the 25th LD, position number 2. I would first really love to thank Indivisible Tacoma. Great folks. They endorsed me last year when I ran for port, so definitely a big thanks to them and all the work that they do. I'd also like to take a personal point of privilege and just say, as chair of the 29th LD Democrats, I love to see our LD represented here so well. So thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. I want to talk about Jenn Marie, who of course can't be here because she's on the Charter Review Commission, where on Monday we were able to put the appointed sheriff on the ballot this coming November. A little bit about Jenn Marie. Jenn Marie is a lifelong Washingtonian and a proud product of Ordon. She grew up in a multi-generational building trades family, and as a small business owner, former D1 rower for Washington State University, and former member of LIUNA at Locals 242 and 252, she knows the value of an honest day's work. She understands that in many of our communities, neighbors look out for one another, and that community care is a shared value we must fight to protect. We all want representatives who actually represent us, but too often politicians like Jenn Marie's opponent and Dave Berg's opponent are siding with wealthy corporations and PACs who will support up to 70% of the time all of their campaign contributions. Jenn Marie knows that in the trades you don't show up to your job site empty-handed. You bring your tools, you bring your solutions, and you build. Jenn Marie believes in investing in local people to develop bottoms-up solutions to our local problems. On the Pierce County Charter Review Commission, she championed a community hire initiative to prioritize our local residents, veterans, and apprentices for good-paying public works jobs. She also fought to establish micro grants to ensure our geographically isolated communities get equitable access to resources. And crucially, she stood up for affordable housing by fighting to protect residents of manufactured and mobile home communities from unfair practices and corporate displacement. Jenn Marie is running for state representative for the 25th LD to take those values to Olympia. We will fight for good-paying jobs, accessible health care, affordable housing, strong public schools, and an accountable government that listens to you. We don't need more politics as usual. We need a builder. Please support Jenn Marie Strickling, and let's build this together. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Linda Farmer, and I've had the pleasure of serving as your nonpartisan auditor for the past 4 years. I oversee elections, recording, and licensing. I have 65 full-time staff, 300 part-time staff, and oversee a budget of $28 million. I ran for this office in 2022 because I care deeply about democracy. I also care about government process, which might make me a little strange, but I have a feeling I'm in good company. As auditor, I have expanded voter outreach, I've added drop boxes, I've improved ballot processing times, and I'm running to continue this work to improve election integrity, to protect election integrity, also to improve how residents interact with their government. I'm a 30-year Pierce County resident. I bring 2 decades of executive management experience to the role. I've served on the Lakewood City Council in the beautiful 28th, and I served on the 2016 Charter Review Commission, so my heart is going out to every single Charter Review Commissioner tonight, their marathon meetings. I live in Lakewood with my husband Jimmy and our college-age daughter. I'm going to leave you with this, and as I was making my notes, I'm like, this is the last group of people I need to talk about democracy to, but I'm going to tell you anyway. We cannot take democracy for granted. And let me tell you what I'm seeing. I started out my very first year in the job, and we had a white powder attack on our election facility in little old Pierce County. It stopped us dead in our tracks. We had to evacuate the building, all 300 people. It stopped the ballot counting, but we got it back on track, and we managed to make it work. We had arson attacks on drop boxes in 2024 in Washington and Oregon. And I had to bring a list so that I could keep it all straight for all the stuff that's going on now. We have the potential of federal agents patrolling drop boxes and vote centers. We have a potential for a seizure of ballots. We definitely have AI deepfakes, misinformation, disinformation, rumoring all over social media. We have the potential for voter ID requirements being put into place, which will require massive in-person processes, which is definitely a problem, a solution in search of a problem. There are pending changes to our postal service, which will make our mail service less timely, even more less timely than it is now. And a pending Supreme Court decision that will likely change the due date for our ballots for the midterms. So I don't know how much you've been paying attention, but it's entirely possible that your ballots will need to be due on election night. Your ballots will need to be in our possession at the election center on election night in November. Watch for it. We will try and make sure that we get the word out. We're all in this together. We cannot take democracy for granted. These are all scare tactics designed to intimidate voters and depress turnout. If elections weren't important, they wouldn't be working so hard to keep you from doing it. So right now, we need a steady, experienced hand at the wheel of the auditor's office, and I thank you for your support.
My name is Tyron Moore. I'm the Executive Director of Tacoma for All. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Safe Homes for All ballot initiative that we're proud to say will be on the November ballot. 3 years ago, in the most expensive election in Tacoma history, voters narrowly passed the Tenant Bill of Rights, some of the strongest renters' rights protections in Washington state. Unfortunately, those rights have not, for the most part, been enforced. And it means that there are slumlords across Tacoma who are violating the law with impunity, and tenants have effectively no recourse unless they can hire an attorney and take their landlord to court, which the vast, vast majority, of course, do not. That's what motivated us in Tacoma for All and our coalition partners like Indivisible to put Safe Homes for All on the ballot to ensure a basic proposition that slumlords should be held accountable, that tenant rights, the law, should be respected, and that the city needs to do their job and enforce those protections. And I'm very proud to say that yesterday we were able to turn in the signatures of nearly 9,000 Tacoma voters who I think agreed with that basic proposition. I want to tell the story of Lorene Rhodes, who was, if anybody read a TNT article about 3 weeks ago, was written up in the paper. We've been organizing with Lorene and other tenants at Westside Estates, a 450-unit building that I think is they face real slumlord conditions. Lorene had her apartment flooded in January. She called up management, and they wouldn't even come to look at it for 3 weeks. Her carpets were literally soaking wet in one of her rooms. All of her possessions in that room, it was a room that was largely used for storage, was completely soaked. And before they even came in to look, black mold was growing up her wall. Eventually, they came in and did some very basic remediation where they, painted over it, sprayed, she'd already, they brought in some fans and things like that. But week after week, month after month, the mold came back. And it wasn't just her apartment, it was a number of apartments in the whole complex. She couldn't get justice. She's getting sick, she's a retired woman, she's dealing with chronic diseases already, and she's getting sick. Her cat is chewing out its fur because it's dealing with allergenic responses. And instead of help, and this is months on, to this day, she is getting eviction threats. She never had any problem with management before, but now that she is complaining and raising concerns, management is trying to evict her. And that's why tenants at Westside Estates call it the Westside Penitentiary. You can't hang up Halloween decorations, Christmas decorations. If you leave your shoes out on the front porch and the management doesn't like you, they will put a 10-day fix or vacate notice on your door. These are the kind of conditions they live in. Their landlord owns a $4 million house on Mercer Island and is suing Tacoma to overturn the Tenant Bill of Rights. This is what we're trying to pass this initiative to solve. The initiative would do 4 basic things. It would say, when a tenant calls the city up and says, hey, I have a violation, the city has to investigate that if it's a credible allegation. And if they find a violation, they must issue a fine. Unfortunately, there's been only 1 fine issued in the last 3 years because it's basically discretionary right now. It would enshrine tenants' right to unionize, saying landlords who preside over majority tenant union apartments must sit down and negotiate with their tenants. How many people have heard about the 6 unit buildings that have unionized here in Tacoma in the last 6 months? Our organization has been a big part of that. We now have the Hoover properties, which are mainly in North Slope and Stadium, which are also real slumlord conditions. They have now 70% of their units unionized. But the Hoovers, who live in Huntington Beach and own a number of properties across the region, refuse to sit down and negotiate with them. And so we're in a situation where we need legal protections for tenants against the retaliation they face when they try and stand up for their rights, and to make sure that there is real deterrence when landlords violate the law. We're very hopeful we're going to pass this, but we know what we're up against, right? This was the most expensive election in Tacoma history because the National Realtors Association dumped $150,000 against us in 2023, because the Statewide Rental Housing Association mobilized $365,000 total against us. 90% of that money was from outside of Tacoma, right? We built a donor base of over 600 people and a volunteer base of over 130 in this election cycle already to go out and build a real grassroots campaign to stand up for tenant rights. So I invite you all to join us. I deeply appreciate the support of the powerhouse like Indivisible Tacoma, who I know will be out there on the doors with us. So please get involved, support Safe Homes for All. Check out tacomaforall.info for more information, to donate, to volunteer. And thank you, Indivisible Tacoma, for your support.
Good evening. Chris Brown talking on behalf of No Hate in Washington State as a volunteer for the campaign. Thank you to everybody who has spoken already on behalf of No Hate in Washington State. I know it's me and Vicki between cake, so I'll try and be, brevity is rewarded, right? I want you to think about when you were in school and you were doing activities in the gym. How many people did activities when they were in school, either in the gym, playground, outside, and those types of things? Just show of hands, right? Okay. Inside of the space that we're talking about right now, for low-income families or families that cannot afford to be able to have medical care that is potentially like outside of the school system, right? Girls and boys inside of those spaces have all of their exams done in that group environment, fully clothed, right? That's how it is right now. For people who are low income that have to be able to do that inside of the school system, if this were to pass, That would mean that that child is being taken into a separate area to be able to be searched in some form about their genitalia. And that is just something that is completely inappropriate. I think that that is one thing that I want you to be able to take away from this evening. Other folks have talked about some of the other things that are happening, right? But this is literally what we're talking about. And I think the more that we can tell that story and let people know that it is inappropriate, not only for school staff to be involved in that type of thing, but to say that anybody should have to have their genitalia checked to be able to participate in an activity is just completely inappropriate. So that's the one thing that I wanted to say there. And then some folks have already said this as well. Boys are exempt. Boys are exempt from that. How crazy. So everybody else has said some other stuff about No Hate in Washington State and the no campaigns, but I just wanted to really say that up front here for folks to be able to understand what that looks like. Thank you.
So the event is not over. We want to thank thank Julie Angievsky, who is co-chair of Indivisible Tacoma, for her endless work on putting this program together. She's out of state and out of country right now, but she had a huge hand in putting this together, and we are very thankful for that. We would also like to thank you very much for participating this evening. We're glad that you came out on a beautiful day, and really thankful for that. Please take extra copies of the voter guide to share with your networks. And there will be an updated version soon. It will be available electronically at our website. We now ask you to join us for cake and conversation. And by the way, one more thing. We will announce the Pierce County Charter amendments at our next July 15th meeting. Forgot to add that. So please enjoy cake and good company. Thank you for coming.